Hello and welcome to another episode of the You Got the Ron Dude podcast. I'm your host, Ron Jammin. Thank you very much for tuning in. This episode is going to be all about Jurassic World Dominion, the third and apparently final installment in the Jurassic World franchise, the third of the trilogy. This podcast is available on Anchor.fm, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. And I'll have links for you in the description. Video clips are available on YouTube and Spotify, so be sure to check those out. Well, the title didn't blow me away. I remember a few years back I tweeted that I think Jurassic World War would be a great title for the next one, after watching Fallen Kingdom. But once you watch this one, Dominion makes sense. But I imagine, how many people have to Google that word. Kind of like Quantum of Solace, the James Bond movie. People are like, what, Quantum of... I don't get it. What does that mean? But I gotta say, I was blown away by this movie. I was impressed. It's very good. It delivers on all fronts. And I didn't want to pay $19.99 to own it. I watched the extended version. It was available to rent today. So I took advantage of that. It was like $6. Now if it were $9.99 and with bonus features, I'm sure I'd pick it up. Especially after watching it, just to make sure. But I heard a lot of mixed things about it. People are kind of disappointed. Made a lot at the box office, just under $1 billion, which is really impressive. But I remember a while back, I was like, I'm not seeing reaction videos. Nothing's popping up. It's not trending. Nothing really viral. Yet, it's a great movie. It just doesn't have anything that really pops. Everything works. There are a lot of great moments and such, but there's nothing really that stands out. And that's not really a problem, though. But I rented the extended edition, which is 2 hours, 40 minutes. And it's a long movie, but the pacing is perfect. So anyways, I'm going to talk in depth. I got a bunch of notes here to go over, so let's get into it. Well, about 30 minutes into the movie, I tweeted that I was really enjoying the movie so far. Because it doesn't rush anything, gets everything done that it needs to. And after watching the entire movie, I tweeted at director Colin Trevorrow. And I said it's a big, bold, breathtakingly beautiful movie. Job well done. It was great. And Colin, of course, he directed Jurassic World, the first installment, and then co-wrote the second one, Fallen Kingdom, but did not direct. I definitely recommend, if you haven't already, make sure to watch Fallen Kingdom. Because if not, you'll be confused in this one, and you'll probably be lost. But it's connected to it, even though it's 4 years after, which, when I first read that, it didn't sit well with me, because I'm the 4-year gap, and coexisting with dinosaurs, it's great opportunity for content creators, but you got people, falling off cliffs, taking selfies and such, and getting eaten by bears. And it's with dinosaurs, good gosh. But still, just a great movie, a real adventure. And, Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, Dominion, all part of the same trilogy, but each one is unique. And I like the connection to Fallen Kingdom because I really enjoyed that. And with this installment, there's not much humor, which I like. Even Chris Pratt, him as Owen, he's a father in this one, essentially. because they had been raising, what's her name, Maisie, for the last 4 years, and it shows, and you just admire his character in this. He did a great job. When we're introduced or reintroduced to Dodgson, who appeared briefly in the first Jurassic Park, I was a bit thrown because he meets Alan and Ellie, but he's really awkward. But as the movie goes along, he has these kind of awkward moments, and you're like, no, that's perfect for the character. It's kind of a different take on a villainous role. And some of the conversations with Ramsey, even Ramsey, like, it was so awkward between them, yet it works. I thought Ramsey was going to kill him. He was going to, like, knife him or something. But I really liked their relationship and the falling out and the revelation and Dodgson's death. I had a feeling it was going to be like Dennis's from Jurassic Park. And that was very well done. But this was different, but it was really entertaining because you probably laughed, especially when he's hitting the chair. But I really like this take and learning more about the character. And when you watch the first Jurassic Park, and Dennis is like, Dodgson, we got Dodgson here. Now when you watch that, you'll be like, oh, they have no idea what his character's up to, what he's going to become. Well, I was really curious what was going to be the big twist, the big revelation in this installment. And, Henry Wu returning, I was like, it's got to be something with him, with his character. Either something he did, or we find out something about him. And I love, just like with Dodgson, I love what they did with Wu's character, because especially at the end when it's like he wants to help, and just like Ramsey and Malcolm, of course, they've all seen the seeds. They all know what's going on, what's been brewing. And with Wu, I love his conversation with Maisie when he shows her everything. And I was so relieved we saw him at the end. He's trying to get on board with them. Because I was like, that's it? Because the last time we saw him, I think Maisie was escaping. And Wu and Dodgson were like, what the heck? But I love his role in this. They give him a lot more to do. And just ties everything together. But great use of the character, great writing. And again with Wu, in the trailer when he says, we made a big mistake, I was drawing a blank. Because I was like, that's interesting. And the whole locust thing, that came out of nowhere. So that was a great plant. I think if Colin had directed Fallen Kingdom, I wonder if he would have planted seeds for this movie and that one, just to kind of set it up more. Even stuff with Dodgson and Biosyn. However, it still works, because this movie you have a lot of new characters, and you have returning characters, and you have a new plot, but it's going off of Fallen Kingdom, and that's why it works, I feel. So it's a direct sequel, yet it takes place 4 years later, but it just gets everything done that it needs to. And the big mistake is revealed, obviously, with the locusts, and how that ties into Maisie and her importance in this. It just, everything works so perfectly. Like, every character has a purpose. If you take one of them out of the equation, it's like, no, we're going to need them for this. We're lacking here, lacking there. And the locusts, because some of the reviews I read, they said like the dinosaurs aren't the focal point. They don't have much screen time. There was a lot of action in this and a lot of dinosaurs. And the locusts, I thought was a great addition. And maybe they could have used the dinosaurs instead. But, like Malcolm said, oh, and this wasn't even in the movie, which I was disappointed at. Just because of that. When the two generations unite and they say what kind of dinosaur, the biggest one, Malcolm says, why do they always have to go bigger? I was looking forward to that line, and they cut it. But anyways, I thought it was just a great blend because you have the human characters, you have the dinosaurs and the locusts, and it all works. Like, everyone has to get to Biosyn. And it's like, there you go. Not like, oh, hey, we're all here in the same place. How about that? It's like, no, they all have to get there. Everybody has a purpose. Everything works. And a great story. But again, I wonder if they'd set it up in Fallen Kingdom a little bit more. But that one does, provide a great story for this movie with the dinosaurs roaming around and everything with Maisie. But there's so much going on, yet it just works so well. Because Maisie finding out about her mother, her origin, everything with the locusts, and yeah, I was just very impressed because usually with the third installment, I kind of roll my eyes when they add a bunch of new characters. But sometimes it works, like a Dark Knight Rises, because you spend a lot of time with the characters. And in this instance, if you've watched the original trilogy, you're familiar with, Dr. Grant, Dr. Sattler. So seeing them again, and of course Malcolm, it's like we already know these characters, so we don't have to spend a lot of time learning about them. And we already have 2 movies with Claire and Owen, and one with Maisie. And, it all works, and I was very impressed with it. And I don't know if this is going to be the last one, though. Maybe with these characters, but you still have dinosaurs roaming around. You have the ones left on Biosyn Island. And I did like the idea of, the market of dinosaurs, the trading and selling and such. That was interesting. Because that was kind of set up in Fallen Kingdom. And this one, it did feel like a satisfying conclusion for these characters. Because you have the 2 generations. By the way, when Claire and Owen and, Grant and Sattler and Malcolm, when they all finally come together, I got a little teary-eyed because I was like, oh my gosh. Because, I grew up with the Jurassic Park trilogy. Very familiar with these characters. And they all come together, and it's such a great story that everything works. And nothing's like, oh, they all just happen to be there, or they just run into each other. No, they're all, they have their own separate missions. But when they're united, it's just beautiful. So with the original trilogy in Jurassic Park 3, of course you have Alan Grant returning, and it was pretty clever because he was convinced by the Kirbys that they'd be flying over the island, and he could just kind of narrate, just kind of show them stuff, point out things. But the Kirbys had their own mission involving their son. So with this one, I was like, well, Grant, he's not going to come back. But this time it also works because, like Ellie says, you don't really have a choice this time. I mean, dinosaurs are roaming around. And throughout the whole movie, you're never like, no, they wouldn't do this. or this person wouldn't be there. It's like they had, great spots for characters to be. And, like Malcolm, he doesn't just show up out of the blue. He's planted, and he has his agenda, and it's just very well written. And my dad and I were talking, before I saw this, and we were wondering if, the kids from the first movie, Tim and Lex, would make a cameo. Because Lex could help with, computer stuff and that. But, I was curious if the studio wanted other characters from previous installments, because I read that Tia Leone, who played Mrs. Kirby in 3, was coming back, but I guess that was just a rumor. Or maybe like Vince Vaughn from The Lost World. And I also wonder if the studio, if they were like, we gotta kill off someone, one of the main characters. Like Wu was injured at the end. And it's like out of all of them, it's like, it's like, really? Not that I wanted any of the characters dead. It's a very sweet ending because you have the couples, Owen and Claire, and they have Maisie to raise. And then, of course, it was just really sweet with, Grant and Sattler. Because it's like, finally. And now that I think of it, when she comes to recruit him, he takes down a photo. I'll have to watch it again sometime. Who was in that photo with him? Was that his kid or something? Or maybe Old Flame or something? But it was very sweet, and I like that throughout the movie, it wasn't about the relationship. It was about getting the mission done. And same thing with Owen and Claire. But, I'm curious if the studio pressured them at all. But what do you think? Did you think any of the main characters were gonna die, sacrifice himself? Like when Owen says to Claire, I always come back. You're like, oh, he's dead. And I was curious with the biosyn workers, after the locusts just caused that massive fire around the island. So they announced the evacuation, but I was curious, where did they go? Because we know how our main characters escaped, but I couldn't remember seeing like a whole bunch of choppers on standby or anything, or other planes. So I'm curious if they even made it out, they even survived. Well, in closing, this was a thrill and adventure. I love all the locations, how often they use the original score, because that still tugs at your heartstrings. It's very beautiful. And again, there wasn't anything that really popped in the movie. There's nothing I'd take out of it to watch separately. However, it's one I'd want to watch with other people, kind of like show it off to them. And I hope it gets, more praise than that. The audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is pretty high, which I liked seeing. But it just didn't hit. It's one of those, it's a great movie, but it's not like a viral sensation or anything. But kudos to Colin Trevorrow and, the cast and crew in that. And this one didn't seem to plant any seeds for a fourth one, but I'm sure, there will always be Jurassic Park movies. But I'm curious if they want to try and reboot it. But this trilogy works because you have Jurassic World, and to me, it never felt like a reboot. Because it's not like they were trying to scrap what happened in the last 3. And then, of course, we have our returning characters in Dominion from the original trilogy. So that just, ties everything together. But I wouldn't mind, if they did another one, another follow-up to this. They seem to put a lid on a lot of stuff, though, with the locusts and with Maisie. But let me know what you think. You want to see more from these characters? Or, in the next movie, they dive more into the market of selling and trading dinosaurs and that? Because, again, I found that pretty interesting. Well, I give Jurassic World Dominion an 8.5 out of 10. Job well done. A thrill, an adventure, a lot of tense moments, just the right amount of humor. There's not a lot, and it just, everything works great. And I took away 1 point just because, while it's a great movie, again, it didn't have that viral sensation. People aren't really talking about it per se. And then half a point, some of the cinematography, the camera work during the bike chase on the streets. The CG was good in that, but some of the shots didn't really work. And then when they were having a conversation, I think in that same place, and they had close-ups and pretty close to their face in that. And the camera work there, they weren't shaking it, but they were kind of moving it. And I didn't really like it. But other than that, job well done. Very entertaining. And thank you again for listening. Podcast is available on Anchor.fm, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. And video clips are available on YouTube and Spotify. I'll have links for you in the description. I'd love to hear from you. You can leave a voice message on Anchor.fm or leave some comments. But yeah, definitely check this out, and make sure you watch Fallen Kingdom before, because it'll be really confusing. And Fallen Kingdom, I'm actually going to watch that one again in the first Jurassic World. But seems like, Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, big hits. And it's always the sequels that are kind of tough, because Jurassic Park went into the Lost World. That one was, not really favored. No one really talks about it. And with Jurassic World, then you had Fallen Kingdom, the same kind of thing. Now, Jurassic Park 3 versus Dominion. Dominion knocks it out of the park. 3 could have been a longer movie. And it's just one of those, it was almost like a spin-off. We don't have to make this. And no big revelations or anything, but it's very entertaining. But yeah, definitely check it out. At least rent it, Dominion. And let me know what you think. But that's going to do it. So I will see you next episode. And thanks again for listening.